Pomej, The Bounty Huntress, Sherlock Holmes, The Galactic Cases. Episode 20. Based on the characters by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. A goaudio production. Once again, chaos reigned aboard the Ultimo One. A distress call had caused quite a stir. On the planet Wolf 1069b, merely 31 light-years from Earth, a respectable citizen named Oliver Oldwinkle had been atomized by a neutron pistol. The circumstances leading to his abrupt death were unclear, making the resolution of this precarious matter by an external mediator absolutely necessary. "You are the most suitable man among us all for this task, Mr. Holmes," Captain Decker flattered him. "Your praise honours me, however. I wonder whether my origins from the past might be seen as an impediment." "But my dear friend," interrupted Dr. Watson, who was also present on the bridge, "origin plays no role whatsoever in such a matter." "In principle, I share the same view," said Holmes, "although in this case I foresee difficulties ahead." "Oh, and why do you believe the upcoming case will be difficult?" wondered Decker. "Can you suddenly see into the future?" "No, not that. I merely deduce it from your behaviour, Mr. Decker, for it appears to me that both you and your first officer, Mr. Tornot, are in quite a state of agitation since receiving the distress call." "Well, one really can't pull the wool over your eyes that easily," Tornot said irritably. Decker shot him a grim look which meant he should be silent at once, before addressing the clever master detective. "You are not entirely wrong, Mr. Holmes. Until recently, there was still a civil war on the planet Wolf 1069b, the cause of which had long been forgotten. Our Minister of Peace barely managed to restore the old order, and bang, now it seems to be falling apart again. I understand. You think that if you personally interfere as a captain of a Galactic Union spaceship, it could lead to new complications. As always, you've grasped it quickly, Mr. Holmes. Therefore, I request that you, accompanied by Dr. Watson and our chief robot Elmer, take on this delicate task on Wolf 1069b. I am certain that you will succeed in resolving the matter to everyone's satisfaction." "A detective naturally cannot resist such advance praise," Holmes admitted. And so, the three of them sat together in a swift red space flyer, with which they could land on a skyscraper rooftop in a metropolis on Wolf 1069b. From the skyscraper, they enjoyed a panoramic view of the planet's surface. However, they could not detect any trace of devastation from the recent civil war. "Well, it all looks quite orderly here," Dr. Watson observed, pointing into the distance. "Over there, I can see a coastal beach with palm trees, wide roads, and tall buildings with many windows and roof terraces. Between them, people as small as ants marching busily about their way, and many flying vehicles gliding silently back and forth." Robot Elmer reported, "We are in the capital Wolfstown, a metropolis that has always been a breeding ground for rebellion. It has produced egocentrics, the unrestrained, and even psychopaths." Sherlock Holmes loosened his green brocade tie slightly. "Well, what strikes me most is the tropical temperature." "Indeed," the doctor agreed. "It's as hot here as in Lady Wincastle's conservatory. Do you remember our bridge game with her and her charming sister, my dear Holmes?" "How could I forget that, my dear Watson, particularly since both Lady Wincastle and her sister had arranged a code with which they attempted to cheat us during that refined card game." "Ha ha, and you, of course, saw through their code straight away and were able to secure victory alongside me," Dr. Watson rejoiced retrospectively. "Yes, but I have a distinct feeling that this case will not be as easy to solve as the Wincastle sisters' code. After all, I am at your side, gentlemen." Elmer re-entered the conversation. "May I ask you to follow me? I shall take you to the leader of this city of 13 million. 13 million people live here? Repeated Dr. Watson. Well, I do hope that number doesn't turn out to be unlucky for us. Or for the murderer of the unfortunate Mr. Oldwinkle, Holmes remarked. Both followed the faithful chief robot Elmer into the lift and travelled up to the 10th floor, where the office of the aforementioned leader was located. They entered an enormous room, which, laid with yellow carpeting, conveyed a refreshing effect. Behind a glass desk, in a comfortable orange wing chair, sat a rotund man, and behind him hung a white board on the wall, upon which was written in large golden letters. Rule 1. The boss is always right. Rule 2. If the boss is ever wrong, Rule 1 automatically applies. Elmer bowed politely, whereupon the pot-bellied man rose with delight. Welcome to Wolfstown, he greeted them with a satisfied smile. My name is Master Linus Lanigan. I am responsible for the safety of all citizens in Wolfstown. I also serve as prison warden for difficult inmates. Captain Decker has already informed me of your arrival, so you are a detective, Mr. Holmes. Yes, and as such, I can also tell you what you had for breakfast today, Mr. Lanigan, namely scrambled eggs with white bread. Oh, how astonishing! That's actually correct. How did you know? Well, that was simple, Holmes replied, and briefly pointed to the master's bright blue jacket. On the lapel of your jacket there are traces of egg yolk and egg white, and on the cuff there are some light breadcrumbs. Startled, Linus Lanigan looked down at himself and immediately wiped away the telltale traces of his meal. Ha ha, how careless of me, when I usually present myself as neat as a pin, if I may use such a platitude. My opponents always say, he must even sleep in front of a mirror. Then he looked at Dr. Watson. And you are the announced doctor. Perhaps you can tell me at a glance what ailments are hiding in my luxurious body. No, I'm terribly sorry, but I would need to conduct a thorough examination for that, Master Lanigan. Somewhat uncertainly, Dr. Watson stroked his moustache. Well, I haven't got much desire for that, the master declined. I'm actually quite happy when I don't have to lie under a diagnostic device. That's where I always learn that I'm living unhealthily, that my gallbladder is full of stones, and so on and so forth. Before we delve any further into your precarious state of health, we'd best get straight to the reason for our visit, Holmes urged. Would you and your friend, who as a doctor has already so kindly offered me an examination, not like to partake in a small refreshment first? There's plenty of scrambled eggs left, and plenty of the tasty white bread as well. No, thank you very much. The doctor declined politely but firmly. We must complete our assignment. You know how it goes. Never put off until tomorrow what you can do today. Lanigan grinned. I always say, what you can do today, calmly put off until tomorrow. For what you can experience today, no one can give you tomorrow. Good, isn't it? No, not quite so good, Holmes objected. We have already had breakfast on board and would like to get straight to the heart of the matter, refreshed and eager to act, if you don't mind. Please as you wish, the master let on with slight disappointment. If you want to miss out on a sumptuous feast, now then, listen carefully. What you need to know is little compared to the storm of outrage that the death of this Oldwinkle has caused. We must above all know the circumstances that led to his death, Holmes stated. They're quite simple. The bounty hunter Arante shot him in his house. Bang! That really is the height of inhospitality, Holmes objected, clenching his fist. How can someone break into another's house and simply shoot the master of the house? And as a woman, no less. One would expect rather more sensitivity from such a person. Lanigan nodded in agreement and sat back down in his wing chair. You've grasped it. An outrage. But I must give her credit. She had at least received a wanted poster for him. We immediately investigated whether it was one from the future, which would mean that the previously very honourable citizen Oldwinkle would soon embark on a path of crime, But this is not the case. There can only be two possibilities. You already suspect which ones, don't you, Mr. Holmes? Yes, either the wanted poster was forged by her herself or by someone else who wishes to harm both her and the honourable citizen Oldwinkle. Wonderful how quickly you grasped that. I must admit it took me a minute longer to reach this conclusion. However, I'm not a detective, therefore I needn't worry about the delay with which I arrived at the conclusion. Mr. Lanigan, Dr. Watson addressed him, is it customary in these parts for ladies to work as bounty hunters? Oh yes, especially when they are as brutal as Arante. No fleeing criminal has ever escaped her yet. Lanigan looked at Holmes appraisingly. And what about you, Mr. Holmes? Have you managed to catch all criminals so far? I could make it easy for myself now and answer with a clear yes, but I am honest enough to confess to you that the Napoleon of crime, Professor James Moriarty, unfortunately escaped me. Well, don't worry about it, dear visitor. Everyone has a bad day now and then, Lanigan consoled him. I assume you would like to speak with the bounty hunter Arante now? The answer to that is a clear yes, the master detective agreed. If it's not too much trouble. Not at all. Lanigan waved dismissively and clapped his hands once. I had already foreseen this and had the woman brought from her cell. The door behind the master opened and the offender was brought forth in handcuffs by two robots. A tanned beauty with sparkling black eyes, even features, and extremely short white hair. She wore only an equally white bodysuit adorned with cutouts at the sides, light grey stockings without garters, and comfortable lace-up ankle boots. Good heavens! Exclaimed Dr. Watson. The poor woman is wearing nothing but her undergarments. No, this is the customary fashion for ladies' outerwear here. The wonderfully light way of life in Wolfstown stems from the sparse, very airy clothing style of its female inhabitants, which leads to a reduction in inhibitions, Lanigan explained, amused by the doctor's indignation. Apparently also a reduction in inhibitions about simply killing someone, Holmes concluded with a stern look at the sexily dressed Arante. He wasn't worth mourning, she hissed quietly. So you admit to having shot poor Mr. Oldwinkle? Holmes sought to confirm. Of course, she said in a conversational tone. I received a wanted poster for him. His death was meant to earn me 29,000 quid. If Attila, the king of the Huns, were still alive, you would work for him, concluded Dr. Watson, outraged by her cold-bloodedness. Wrong! He would work for me! Her smiling mouth revealed astonishingly sharp teeth. Yes, I believe that too, remarked Lanigan, measuring her with noticeable respect. Whoever runs into your open arms immediately meets their maker. You are quite a harsh woman, Dr. Watson remarked in wonder. Are you married and do you have any children? Marriage is a coffin and every child is a nail, she hissed through her pointed teeth. What do you actually want from me? Would you like me to dispose of someone for you as well? Outrageous, Dr. Watson fumed. Apparently, this ice-cold lady kills in rapid succession. Well, that's my profession, moustache. My name is Watson, Dr. Watson, he corrected rather agitatedly, rising onto his tiptoes, as he was somewhat shorter than Arante. All right, little doctor, she purred with a smile. Don't get upset, or you might have a heart attack, and someone might cry, perhaps even tears of joy. Well, this is the limit. The doctor looked pleadingly at Holmes, who merely observed the chattering Arante with narrowed eyes. My greatest achievement was when I once finished off a bloke by driving him to a stroke with my witty remarks. First his face turned red, then he had a seizure, and finally he dropped dead, which saved me ammunition. Yes, I can confirm that, Lanigan chimed in again. We're getting nowhere like this, said Elmer, who was bored by the seemingly endless prattle of humans. Mr. Holmes, you should finally get to the point. Time is of the essence. I was just about to do that, Elmer, the master detective assured him. Now then, Lady Arante, what can you tell me about the fateful wanted poster? Plenty, but certainly not in handcuffs. She held up her hands demonstratively, their wrists marred by the glinting metal. At a nod from the master, one of the guard robots flanking her removed her handcuffs, and she rubbed her freed wrists. Cheekily, she sat on Lanigan's desk and crossed one slender stockinged leg over the other. She appeared to be enjoying the situation. We're not hearing anything, the doctor reprimanded her. That's because I haven't started chattering yet, tee-hee, she giggled nonchalantly. Well, I was lounging about at home when a wanted poster rattled out of my electronic postbox, supposedly sent by the Tax Investigation Office for whom I often work. You see, tax evasion is something of a serious crime where we come from. Yes, here too, Holmes nodded thoughtfully. We come from a monarchy that needs a great deal of money for representation. I see, she winked at him and continued. Naturally, I dashed off straight away and visited the chap at home who was listed under the name Oliver Oldwrinkle. Wrong, exclaimed Dr. Watson, delighted to have caught her in a mistake. His name was Oldwinkle. Whatever, names are but sound and smoke, so I flew to this Oldwinkle's place, smuggled myself through the ventilation system into his pompous house, and found him by his swimming pool. What, you shot the poor fellow in the swimming pool? Dr. Watson probed. No, listen, moustache, she snapped at him. I encountered him there, not fatally encountered him. Besides, he was anything but poor. That made him even more suspicious to me. Rich people rarely come by their wealth honestly, understand? And what happened next? Inquired Holmes, who was restlessly patrolling back and forth in front of the desk. Quite simple. I showed him the wanted poster and asked him to come with me, but he kicked up a fuss, which is to say, he refused. He got himself terribly worked up and kept dribbling on about it being a fatal error, which gave me hope that he would pop off from a stroke like the other one, but he didn't do me that favour. Tsk, this woman is simply… I'm lost for words, Dr. Watson fumed. Do let her continue with her story, my dear friend, Holmes cautioned him and listened to her subsequent words. Instead, he lulled me with excuses, said he had been lured into a trap by his enemies, who were using me as their willing instrument. And that sounded illogical to you? Lanigan interrupted her. Of course. When I stand in front of someone with my neutron blaster, everyone becomes talkative. Some start praying, others start cursing, and this old wrinkle, or Oldwinkle, made up this story about imaginary enemies. But he did have real enemies, Lanigan reminded her. Everyone has those, but not all of them come up with the idea of activating me through a wanted poster. Who's going to pay me my 29,000 quid now? Well, I'm afraid you'll have to write off that sum, Holmes explained to her matter-of-factly. What's important for you is that you can prove where the wanted poster came from, because it obviously didn't come from the Inland Revenue. You said it, Langer. She nodded and slapped her right thigh once. How stupid that not only was this Oldwinkle fooled, but even I was taken in as well. Yet the wanted poster looked just like always. That's perfectly logical, Lanigan interjected once again. To be authentic, the fraudster had to forge a genuine wanted poster, which was easily possible with the help of technical equipment. Exactly, she reluctantly agreed with him. And I wonder why this oldie didn't simply come along with me. Instead, he attempted to escape, running barefoot from his swimming pool, nearly slipping and breaking his neck in the process, to a wardrobe, opened the door, and took an old-fashioned pump-action shotgun from a clothes hook. A pump-action shotgun? What's that then? Inquired Dr. Watson, who wasn't familiar with such a weapon. An ancient repeating rifle, typically loaded with shotgun cartridges, and when one is shot with it, it creates ghastly wounds and completely ruins the surroundings with blood spatter. At this thought, she wrinkles her pretty button nose. I didn't want to risk that sort of disfigurement, so I pulled the trigger and riddled the chap with neutrons until nothing remained of him. That's about the size of it. I really can't think of anything else. My mind's completely blank on the matter." "Say, eloquent lady," Holmes began, scratching the back of his head. "Did this Mr. Oldwinkle have anything to do with the recent civil war here?" "You can bet your arse on that, tall chap," she confirmed with a briefly raised fist. "He was a respectable arms dealer and made the deal of his life. That's why the wanted poster from the tax office didn't surprise me further. Years ago, even a crime boss named Al Capone was sent to the nick for financial fraud, and not for the numerous murders he was responsible for." Lanigan seemed to be thoroughly amused. In an affected manner, he ran his tongue behind closed lips over the upper row of his incisors, before grinning and declaring, "My, how educated our bounty hunter is! Takes an interest in history and expresses herself so eloquently. Tell me, Lady Arante," Holmes addressed her, "have you never thought about taking up a different, more feminine profession?" "What's supposed to be a more feminine profession? A lace maker, or a hairdresser, or a chiropodist?" She grabbed her white-haired head with both hands, though it didn't make her look a day over 25. "I simply have enormous fun hunting criminals. It gives me the thrill. The adrenaline pumps madly through my body and drives me to peak performance." "But Mr. Oldwinkle wasn't a criminal," Lanigan interjected. "He was the victim of a conspiracy." "Yes, I noticed that too. Why didn't he simply come along with me? Some men are as stubborn as tanks," she fumed. "I find it only too logical that an arms dealer would try to defend himself with a weapon," Dr. Watson explained, "even if he wastes shotgun cartridges in the process." Arante pulled a face. "And now I can waste my youth in prison." "What do you intend to do now, Mr. Holmes?" Elmer ventured to ask, having followed the dialogue attentively thus far. The young lady's statements were rather sparse. "Well, I believe I can work with that. First, we must locate where the wanted poster originated from." "I've already taken care of that," Lanigan pointed out with his left hand. "The wanted poster was sent from a recently vacated house at 858 Adamson Street. The original residents, named Meyer Krumpholz, had moved and therefore left the door open after they had transported all their valuables to their new address." "And have you found any trace of who used the address as a place of dispatch?" Dr. Watson pressed. "Elementary, my dear friend," Holmes praised him. "That is precisely what I was about to find out." "No, the house was empty, apart from the usual rubbish that the previous occupants did not need and therefore left behind." Lanigan shrugged. "That does rather disappoint me," Holmes scolded him. "That you apparently did not make the effort to verify whether all those items truly came from the previous occupants, or perhaps from the fraudster who misused the address as the origin of the wanted poster." "Ha! I'm not a detective. That's supposedly your job." Lanigan defended himself and rose angrily. "Well, I'm going for my lunch break now anyway. You can stay here with Arante and continue questioning her if you think that will yield anything." "Ha ha! I bet no one will notice your absence," Arante sneered. "Even a half-assembled robot could easily replace you." Offended, Master Lanigan trotted out of the enormous office. "Well, what shall we three lovely people do with each other now?" Arante grinned, still smirking as she looked from Holmes to Dr. Watson and back again. "I have several amusing ideas." "I dare not imagine your ideas," the doctor grumbled. "And I'm afraid you must return to your cell, Lady Arante," ordered Holmes, whereupon the two guard robots swiftly handcuffed the baffled bounty hunter once more and led her away. "I would have thought you more charming, tall one," she whined before the doors closed behind her and her robotic escorts. "Now imagine, my dear Holmes, if you were married to such a fury," pondered Dr. Watson. "It would be almost like being the devil's son-in-law." I never thought about entering into matrimony anyway, my dear friend. Therefore, I shall not waste any time now dwelling on such an absurd notion. We must now simply visit the address that Lanigan provided, 858 Adamson Street. I sense we might shed some light on the matter there. That will be urgently needed, as such a dark figure as this Arante could desperately use some light. The doctor stroked his moustache once again and whispered, "Called me Whiskers. Tisk. I have uploaded a city map of Wolfstown into my brain," Elmer claimed proudly. "We can fly there straight away. Please follow me back to our vehicle." In their swift spacecraft, they flew to a landing site amidst towering buildings. Elmer led them along a street to their destination. "One can easily get lost in the labyrinth of alleyways between all these skyscrapers," he remarked. An open gate invited them to enter. In the unfurnished 50-square-metre ground floor flat, which was bathed in diffused light through small windows, they found nothing but dirt and the usual remnants of a completed relocation. On the floor lay some wood splinters, crumpled packing paper, screws, the lid of a moving crate, and, in one corner, a memory card. "What is that?" inquired Holmes, pointing at the tiny golden square. "That is quite an ordinary memory card, the type one can insert into a smart bracelet. It usually contains only scanned files or photographs that are no longer needed." "That is presumably why it was left behind," Elmer summarised. "We would very much like to take a look at those," Dr. Watson expressed with interest. "I just need to insert it into my nose. Then I can project the stored content onto the wall through my eyes," Elmer announced, and slid the small card into his nose. The promised files appeared on the wall. They consisted of invoices, delivery notes, and several family photographs showing a man, a woman, and 2 children aged between 6 and 7 years. "Those are rather successful photographs," Holmes noted. "Why would they simply be left behind? I rather suspect someone has lost them." "That is quite possible," Elmer admitted. "Sometimes the bracelet ejects a memory card that is already full without the wearer noticing." "What are you getting at, my dear Holmes?" inquired Dr. Watson. "Do you mean to say that the fraudster lost his memory card here after sending the fateful wanted poster from this location?" "Yes, that is indeed my view. People do make mistakes, and they often overlook small details which, as you have frequently observed, do not escape my notice. Perhaps these invoices will give us insight into the person who entered here without authorization. Let's see. This invoice here concerns a case of champagne for a certain Richmond Delacroix." "Ah, hey!" exclaimed the doctor with delight. "And the original inhabitants were called— wait a moment, what were they called again? Just a moment, I'll have it. No, I can't quite recall it. Do you know, Holmes?" "Of course. My memory functions even in the hottest temperatures. Meyer Krumpholz was their name," he announced triumphantly. "Therefore, we shall pay a visit to this Mr. Delacroix and ask him whether he is missing a memory card for his bracelet." "Very good, Mr. Holmes," Elmer praised him. "I also have stored a registry of all 13 million inhabitants. A man named Richmond Delacroix lives at number 339 on 26th Avenue. That's not far from here, as I can see on my street map." "Then let's hurry to meet this careless fellow," urged the doctor whilst rubbing his hands. "Our investigation is making swift progress." Once again, Elmer led his 2 19th-century English companions through the labyrinth of streets and alleyways of Wolfstown, the metropolis of 13 million. They encountered several passers-by who, however, paid them no particular attention. "Not far from here, Elmer?" Dr. Watson teased him. "My feet are already aching." "Yes, I must reluctantly admit that fatigue is setting in for me as well," Holmes shared. "Oh, look, there ahead is the address 858 Adamson Street," Elmer noticed. "We've been walking in circles." "How is that even possible?" Dr. Watson began to reproach the metal servant, full of indignation. "I am rather disappointed. I had no idea that a robot could make mistakes." "I must apologize," Elmer said, embarrassed. "There appear to be magnetic disturbances here which are confusing my built-in sense of direction. Normally, I am 100% reliable." "Now, we're standing in front of the same address again." Holmes broke off. "Hush! There's someone inside. I hear shuffling footsteps. We must investigate this." Together, they paid a second visit to the 50-square-metre flat through the still open door. The rubbish on the floor was still there, though it had been moved to different places, making it clear that someone had been searching for something, or, if they were still present, as suggested by the shuffling footsteps, was still searching. "Hello? Is anyone here?" Dr. Watson's voice echoed through the empty flat. From the furthermost room, a figure approached them. An elderly gentleman in a long, light brown habit, similar to that of a monk, with a red cord tied around his waist, came towards them inquisitively. He smelled of garlic, and his hair appeared to contain a bird's nest, so matted was its appearance. "My name is Belmerton. I am a vagrant by trade." "Ah, then you must be looking for something useful here?" Sherlock Holmes surmised. "Yes, but apart from wrapping paper, which I can smooth out and reuse, I found nothing here, unfortunately." "What is, man? Can you answer this question for me?" Belmerton stared at them with a piercing gaze. "A creature of God," replied Dr. Watson. "Sometimes rather a creature of the devil when committing crimes." Holmes shared his opinion. "If you say so," the vagrant reluctantly agreed. "But he is something else as well, namely, above all, a producer of rubbish. He leaves his waste everywhere, and it takes men like me to put it back to use. What were you looking for here before me?" "Nothing special, just traces of an intruder," the doctor informed him. "I am not an intruder, but rather something like the local health inspector. The day before yesterday, or even earlier, I cannot quite remember exactly, I saw a young, pretty woman coming out of here who had apparently spent the night in this empty flat. She looked as though she had never experienced a bad day in her short life. I approached her, and she simply drove me away with an insult. Most impolite." "What did she say to you?" Holmes probed. "That I looked like a broken care robot." "That is truly very rude," Elmer confirmed. "Anyone who has ever seen a care robot knows how inappropriate the comparison is." "Yes, exactly." Belmerton nodded eagerly, and Elmer chatted on. "You look more like someone in need of care who urgently requires a care robot." This remark didn't seem to make the vagrant particularly happy either. "At any rate, I didn't dare venture into the empty flat straight away." "And when did you dare to go inside, Mr. Belmerton?" Dr. Watson wanted to know, feeling sorry for the elderly gentleman. "Well, I only decided to check things out today," he explained. "How interesting. Did you notice anything else?" Elmer interviewed him. "No, except that there are more and more empty flats. Strange, people seem to be moving more and more, as if they could start a new life with a new address." He shook his head thoughtfully. "But you cannot run away from yourself." "You seem to be a philosopher," observed Holmes. "Do you know your way around the city well?" "Oh yes, sir. I know it like the back of my hand, although I'm not wearing any hand," he joked. "Then you could lead us to 26th Avenue, as our robot is having difficulties with the magnetic conditions in Wolfstown," suggested Dr. Watson. "For a small fee, I'll gladly show you around and tell you the history of the city," promised Belmerton. "Do we have a small fee, my dear Elmer?" Holmes made certain. The latter reached beneath his chestplate and pulled out a silver coin. "This is a wolf dollar that Captain Decker gave me, as some residents still wish to pay in cash. It seems to be quite an unusual hobby around here." With gleaming eyes, Belmerton took the coin. "Thank you. Come along, I shall lead you to your fortune," he expressed himself theatrically. Indeed, the vagrant Belmoton managed to guide his companions to their desired destination after just a brief journey of 20 minutes, whereupon he bid farewell to spend a pleasant day with his newly acquired coin. The address on 26th Avenue turned out to be a 4-story villa surrounded by a garden with artificial flowers. A household robot welcomed them and led them to a man in a reddish-brown dressing gown who was standing on his balcony peering through binoculars, from which he reluctantly turned away. "A Mr. Holmes and a Dr. Watson from the Galactic Union wish to speak with you, sir," announced the small robot to introduce the guests, making no mention of their large colleague Elmer. "Mr. Richmond Delacroix, we bring you your memory card, which you have likely been missing," Holmes revealed, without lengthy preamble, the reason for their visit. Elmer retrieved the small golden rectangle from his nose and handed it to the baffled Mr. Delacroix. "Oh, well now, how did my memory card come to be in your possession, gentlemen?" he asked as he accepted it. "You won't believe us," Dr. Watson began to explain. "We found it in an abandoned flat, carelessly lost in a corner. Could it be possible that you were at 858 Adamson Street?" "No," he said remarkably quickly, whilst making the small memory card disappear into the side pocket of his dressing gown. "Then your smart bracelet must have made its way there on its own. Is that even possible for these newfangled things?" Holmes raised his eyebrows questioningly. "No, Delacroix appeared to be thinking hard. Now I have the solution, as I am indeed the proud father of 2 children. One of them, presumably the cheeky Killian, must have run there with it and, lost the card there. Yes, that must be what happened." Holmes and Dr. Watson exchanged doubtful glances before the master detective addressed Delacroix again. "May I inquire about your profession, sir?" "Certainly, I am a politician. The Minister of Internal Affairs, to be precise. A delicate job, I can tell you that. Would you care for a drink? My household robot will bring us refreshments straight away. Do come into my drawing room." The drawing room was resplendent with Baroque period furniture. Everything appeared pompous and utterly excessive. The master of the house took his seat in a gold-adorned armchair, whilst Holmes shared an equally gold-adorned chaise longue with Dr. Watson. The small robot served each of them a tall glass of orange juice. "Mr. Delacroix, did you know Mr. Oliver Oldwinkle personally?" Holmes began the interrogation. "Yes, unfortunately, he was an arms dealer who met a swift end. I found it rather ironic, an arms dealer killed by a highly efficient weapon which, incidentally, he himself traded wholesale. Ha ha. There's quite a comedic element to it. Ha ha ha. Come now, do laugh along. Laughter is healthy and tax-free." "I must protest," Dr. Watson objected sternly. "One does not laugh about the death of a person, even if they were a merchant of death." Delacroix nodded contritely. Yes, you are quite right, but he significantly contributed to the devastating civil war that took place in our country, and enriched himself enormously in the process. Simply shameless. What was actually the reason for the storm of outrage after the death of an arms dealer? Inquired Holmes, after he had emptied his glass of orange juice. The loss of many jobs, because his production has been at a standstill since his death. Besides, such a wealthy man has powerful friends, explained Delacroix. Is there a widow? Dr. Watson wanted to know. No, he wasn't married. As far as I know, he frequently visited high-class brothels. I only know this through hearsay. I've never been to such an establishment myself. In an article about such establishments, I once read about what men seek there. What do you think that is, gentlemen? He looked expectantly from Holmes to the doctor. The latter replied, naturally, their physical pleasure. Yes, indeed, but it is worthwhile to learn which types of women are preferred there, Delacroix explained. Most often, married men come and seek the opposite of what they have at home, If they have a blonde, they want a dark-haired one. If they have a plump one, they want a thin one. If they have a short one, they want a tall one. If they have a... That might be interesting to you, dear Mr. Delacroix, Holmes interrupted him, but we are hardly interested in that. No? Well, never mind then. The ladies of negotiable affection there will certainly be saddened by his passing, as they have lost a very well-paying regular customer. Pardon me, but a bit of schadenfreude is hardly forbidden. Delacroix apologised half-heartedly. No, not schadenfreude, but sending a wanted poster which allegedly came from the tax office, yet was sent from that address where we found your memory card. Holmes confronted him with the evidence against him. Indignantly, he leapt up from his golden chair. I have already told you that I was never there myself, only perhaps one of my children. Why would I want to eliminate this arms dealer? Because firstly, you obviously disliked him, Holmes began counting. And secondly, as Minister of Internal Affairs, you wanted to prevent him from continuing his destructive business, which might have led to another flare-up of the Civil War. With his head bowed, Delacroix sat down again. Admittedly, I was never his friend, and I have indeed wished the plague upon him more than once. However, I could never stoop so low as to send him to his death with a simple wanted poster. From what I gathered from the news, a bounty hunter simply atomized him. The main blame, therefore, lies with that person. But this person would never have acted without the wanted poster, Dr. Watson pointed out. Whoever sent the wanted poster wanted Oldwinkle to die. Delacroix angrily threw his highball glass against the wall, where it shattered with a clinking sound. Bloody hell! Keep calm, Mr. Delacroix, Holmes admonished him and rose slowly. You should not damage your very comfortable home in a fit of rage. It would be a great shame to ruin such precious furnishings. Do you really think I'm so utterly stupid that I would forget or lose my memory card there or whatever? He fumed, waving his arms about. It's far more likely that someone is trying to pin this on me. I don't know how the card could have got from my bracelet to there, but if someone wants to harm me, they would surely have found a way. Ha! Exclaimed Dr. Watson. First you blame your poor boy, and now suddenly it's some mysterious stranger. Wait a moment. Something occurs to me, said Delacroix, brushing the hair from his low forehead, which had already developed agitated red patches. As far as I'm aware, this bounty hunter always worked with a female partner. Have you questioned her yet? No, Holmes had to admit. We knew nothing at all about a female partner. Well, there you have it, but always quick to cast suspicion on innocent politicians. That's what we like. Please excuse me. Duty calls. I must go to Parliament to give a speech. I need to change and memorise all the important points. Farewell. He bade them goodbye and left the drawing-room with his dressing gown billowing. Did you notice it, Holmes? The man had the same cold smile as the woman in her undergarments. Yes, my dear Watson. Politicians and female bounty hunters seem to share the same character traits. Do you believe the bit about the partner, Mr. Holmes? Elmer inquired with interest. Indeed, for that fits perfectly with Mr. Belmerton's story about the young woman who called him a defective care robot. That bounty hunter with her loose tongue would have said exactly the same thing, Holmes summarised. Those who work together often adopt each other's manner of speaking. Quite right, the doctor immediately agreed. Birds of a feather flock together, so she was at the address and sent the wanted poster from there. However, that's still merely speculation based on the testimony of an observant vagrant, still not solid evidence, Holmes cautioned with a raised hand. We must be careful, mustn't hastily accuse anyone, as it could have lethal consequences. We should find out the partner's address, Elmer suggested. However, I'll need her name for that. Given the circumstances, Holmes and the doctor had no choice but to have Elmer drive them back to Master Lanigan to question Arante once more. His sense of direction seemed to be working properly now, as they found the high-rise roof again, and the three of them went to see Master Lanigan, who was sitting bored at his glass desk, brooding. "Hello, Master Lanigan, we've returned," announced Dr. Watson. "We need to exchange a word or two with your imprisoned female guest, dear master." He did not look pleased when they confronted him with the prospect of having Arante brought forth again. "Oh, not that dreadful woman again," he protested with an expression as if he had just bitten into an onion. "You have no idea what a security risk it poses to keep dragging her from her high-security cell to here." "Master Lanigan," implored Dr. Watson, "we are trying to solve a murder case where, whilst the murderess has been identified, the person behind it all, who orchestrated the crime, remains in the shadows." "Do you have the necessary evidence?" "Better than that, dear master. We found a vagrant who can serve as an eyewitness," Holmes confirmed. "However, we would like to learn the whereabouts of the suspect from Arante first." "She nearly escaped from the two guard robots once before." "Oh, very well." He clapped his hands in exasperation, and shortly afterwards the guard robots brought forth the bounty hunter for the second time. "Well, well, I know you two nosy Parkers already. He, she whinnied. "Have you been missing me?" As she spoke, she moved her wrists so that her handcuffs clattered like castanets. "Rat-a-tat-tat!" "Ah, no, we have just come from the Minister of Internal Affairs, who informed us that you work with a partner, which you concealed from us," criticised Dr. Watson. "Yes, because I did not consider it important," she justified herself. "It appears you were the arrow in someone's bow who wished ill upon Mr. Oldwinkle, a practical instrument to dispose of him," Holmes summarised, as astute as ever. "And whose instrument was I?" Her grinning face suddenly turned serious. "That should be easy to determine. Either it was Mr. Delacroix, the minister, who naturally denies it, or it was your partner, who possibly wanted to get rid of you, so she wouldn't have to share the reward money received thus far with you, Lady Arante," Holmes revealed to her. "Blimey, I hadn't even thought of that." Arante visibly deflated. The notion that her own partner might be responsible for her languishing in prison was clearly taking its toll on her. Jellison and I had always got on rather well. "Yes, I know that," Dr. Watson shared with her. "It has happened quite often here in England as well, that good friends suddenly become enemies, or that bosom friends become arch rivals. If you were good at history, you might have read about Elizabeth I and Mary Stuart. The former had the latter's head chopped off." "Ha ha ha," Master Lanigan laughed. "I would have loved to see that, in slow motion, mind you." "Where can we find Miss Jellison?" Holmes demanded the address. "In my flat, number 38 16th Avenue, said Arante, without cracking one of her crude jokes. "We even live together, you see." "Let's not waste any time," Holmes indicated to the doctor to follow him. "We shall put Miss Jellison to the test and, if necessary, confront her with our eyewitness." Back in the red space cruiser on the way to 16th Avenue, Lanigan's voice boomed from the speaker. "Hello, Mr. Holmes. This is the Master speaking with an important message, which you can probably guess if you're such a brilliant detective." "I sense trouble. Has Arante escaped?" he surmised. And from the speaker came Master Lanigan's confirmation. "Indeed she has. That warrior woman Arante has managed to escape. She bent my two guard robots into scrap metal, so be on your guard. She's likely already on her way home to hold her partner accountable. You'd better not get in her way." "Just what we need." Dr. Watson rolled his eyes and threw his hands up over his head, which was rather difficult in the cramped space cruiser. "That's all we needed. An enraged bounty hunter full of vengeful desires on our heels, bent on taking justice into her own hands." "Keep calm, my dear Watson. We have overcome so many unpleasant situations that we shan't have to surrender to the rage of an enraged lady in lingerie. Holmes said with certainty. I still lean towards the politician as the perpetrator, pondered Dr. Watson. The way he told us about the report on married men's preferences in brothels immediately made me suspect he was merely trying to distract us. Ah, politicians talk a lot when the day is long and they find enough listeners. Holmes waved it off. No, I firmly believe this is a case of a partnership that has come to an end. They landed at the specified address, in front of a bungalow with a landing pad on the roof, where a flying car was parked, and disembarked. Their vigorous knocking at the front door remained unanswered. Only a few birds which had been perched on the roof took flight with startled screeches. Elmer, can you get us inside? I hope Arante hasn't beaten us to it and we'll find only a female corpse behind the door, Dr. Watson worried. Or her atoms. The robot inserted his index finger into the keyhole and turned it, whereupon the door sprang open immediately. Inside the bungalow stood some modern furniture and a fully stocked weapons cabinet. Several black pistols lay side by side in its glass display case. So these are neutron pistols? Holmes opened the glass door and picked one up. Careful, Mr. Holmes, warned Elmer. If you pull the trigger, I cannot undo the damage. Everything you aim at and fire upon reverts to its smallest components, the doctor inquired incredulously. Indeed, and afterwards these cannot be restored to their original formation, the robot instructed them. Although several scientists are already working on a reverse gun with which one can undo the wrought devastation. In this display case there is room for 4 pistols, but only 3 are stored inside, Holmes observed, and placed the one he was holding back. Surely they took Arante's weapon from her in prison, said Dr. Watson. Hence the empty space. Or perhaps, Holmes interrupted himself. From outside, hurried footsteps reached their ears. Who's there? Called out a female voice. Elmer, chief robot of Ultimo 1, Dr. Watson and Detective Holmes, the faithful robot announced without delay. Oh, I see, she sounded relieved. A young lady entered. She was a red-haired woman wearing white shorts and a pink top, with flip-flops on her feet, carrying a large package which she placed beside the door. Who are you, and what are you doing in my bungalow? We were commissioned by the Galactic Union. The bungalow is also inhabited by your partner Arante, is it not, Miss Jellison? Said Holmes, studying her more closely. With her fair, porcelain-like skin and red hair, she looked like a doll. Her physiognomy also suggested a harmless person, but appearances were often deceptive. Yes, but she is indisposed, replied the redhead with a shrug of her shoulders. I've just come back from shopping. What do you want from me? Could it be that now your partner is indisposed, you have more money than you know what to do with? Inquired Dr. Watson. There's no such thing as too much money, she replied, running her fingers through her red hair. Sunbeams fell through a window onto it, making it glow like fire. You can certainly dispose of Arante's share as well, can't you, Miss Jellison? Holmes posed the crucial question. Yes, sir. What are you implying? Her blue eyes narrowed. That you wrote and sent the false wanted poster. I certainly didn't send the wanted poster, she insisted, stamping her foot defiantly. So, said Dr. Watson. However, we managed to track down an eyewitness who saw a young woman leaving the empty flat at 858 Adamson Street. He would certainly recognise you. Would you be willing to come with us for an identification line-up? No, she snapped at him unkindly. I have absolutely no intention of loitering about in empty flats. What would I be doing there when I have such a lovely apartment here? Well, sending the fateful wanted poster, for instance, Holmes reminded her. So you can have this lovely apartment all to yourself, added Dr. Watson, and keep all the money for yourself. Nonsense! And even if the eyewitness were to recognise me, it could still have been someone who looks like me. She rattled off snippily. It sounded like a recited poem that refused to rhyme. "Peculiar," Holmes whispered to the doctor. "The package is wrapped in the same brown paper that we found at 858 Adamson Street." "I have never been there," she blurted out hastily. "Whoever claims that is lying. Now get out of here, and make it snappy." "You should be careful, Miss Jellison. Arante has escaped from prison," warned Elmer, earning himself a stern look from Holmes. "Oh no, I am doomed," shrieked Jellison in fright, and ran up the stairs to the car park where her flying car was parked. "Wait!" Holmes called after her, but it was too late. Upon reaching the top, she encountered Arante, who was aiming a neutron pistol at her. "No, don't do it! I'm sorry!" she screamed, before disintegrating into her atoms. Both Holmes and Dr. Watson had rushed up the stairs as quickly as possible, but they only saw Arante standing next to the flying car with a sorrowful expression and the neutron pistol in her hand. "And I thought she was my friend," she whispered softly. Dr. Watson shook his head disapprovingly. As Friedrich Schiller once said, "The delusion is brief, but the remorse is long." "I do not regret my actions," Arante assured him. "Those we love often hurt us most deeply," she explained to Holmes. "You were too quick to reach for your weapon. In doing so, you denied her the opportunity to make amends." "There can be no amends for betrayal," she said harshly, got into the flying car and fled. "She won't get far," predicted Elmer. "Yes, she'll end up back in prison," stated Dr. Watson. "Perhaps," agreed Holmes. "But such a hot-blooded woman won't stay locked up for long. I'm truly glad I remained a bachelor." You were listening to S. Pomej. The Bounty Huntress. Sherlock Holmes, The Galactic Cases. Episode 20. Based on the characters by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. A goaudio production.